Sorry. Come here a second. Hey, Faith Ann. How are you? I'm on my live, but real quick, I want to let you know I just took him out.
Oh.
So okay. If he begs, he just went out.
Okay.
Sorry. He's talking about my dog. He thinks he has to go out all the time. If you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. Hello, hello. Anybody gonna stay and chat with me tonight? Bentley as well. He's doing good. I know you do. We all do, sweetheart. Okay, guys. See who else is gonna get on. I'm a little late tonight. Oh, thank you for the likes, Faithy Ann. I appreciate that. I have a bunch to talk about tonight, so I'll wait for a few people to hop on. Hey, Fred, how are you? It's always crazy right before my live. Like, I can have the most boring day, and then all of a sudden, like, the last hour before my live gets crazy, and then I'm scrambling. If you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. Hello, hello. Anybody want to talk to me? I'm running a little late because of that. Because it's always last minute. Got to take the dog out before my live, so he's not, whining. If you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. Hello, hello. See my sewing machine back there? I've been sewing like crazy. Anybody gonna talk to me tonight? From Montana. You never did tell me what part of Montana you're from. I love Montana. I don't love it so much in the wintertime, but I love Montana. It's gorgeous. If you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. Big Timber. Know exactly where that's at. I've been through Montana so many times I can't count. While living in North Idaho and then the kids being in South Dakota, it's like, yeah. Thanks for the likes, Fred. I can't talk tonight. It's going to be an interesting live. I've got 3 pages to talk about. See if we can get it out, spit it all out. Sorry, I got a text message here. I got to check that real quick. Well, I can't respond, so I'll have to respond after. It'll be what it'll be. Okay, so I'm just going to wait another minute. I was a few minutes late, but I'm going to see if anybody else hops on before we get going. So if you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. Hello, hello. See if anybody else, or maybe we're just going to plateau out and I'll just start. All right, looks like we're just gonna plateau. So I'm just gonna get started. So if you're new here and you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. Priscilla from Dallas, welcome, glad to have you here. All right, okay, so if you're new here, like I said, tell us who you are, where you're from. Amanda from Michigan, welcome. Thank you for the badge, Amanda, I appreciate that. You're so welcome, Priscilla. Oh, and now we're flying. Oh, Joy, thank you for the heart me, I appreciate that so much. Stacy from Jacksonville, thank you for the badge. Joy, thank you for the heart, me, and the badge. I appreciate that. And the rose. Aw. I appreciate you so much, Joy. If you only knew. Okay, so I'm going to get started. So if you're new here and you're not familiar, my name is Renee and I'm from California. That changed. It's still weird for me to say that. Formerly of South Dakota. Welcome tonight. We're going to talk about dealing with grief. This is something that I haven't talked about in a while. But before I do that, I'm just going to if you're new here, I'm just going to give you a rundown of my channel and what I'm about. Hey, Bella, welcome back. Thank you for the badge and the likes. Aw, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate all of the gifts too. So like I said, if you're new here, my name is Renee. I started my channel in March of 2024. The reason I started this community is because in September of, thank you. I've never gotten that one. That's cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's so cool. So I started my channel in 2024. The reason I started my channel is because in September of 2023, for TikTok purposes, my husband unalived himself. And at that time, that's when I discovered that I had abilities to talk to my spirit guides, or I should say they could talk to me, I could hear them. That's when they slowly breadcrumb me to my purpose, which is to help other people through loss. Just a quick recap if you're new here, and if you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. My husband and I were together for 32 years, never apart longer than 2 weeks. In that 32 years, we were together since I was 16 years old, so I did not know an adult life without him. And when he passed, everybody kept telling me, just put one foot in front of the other. And I literally didn't know how to do that. I could barely breathe. And so my husband didn't leave me in a great spot financially. And so I knew therapy was out. And thank you for that. Thank you for that, Bella. I appreciate that. Like I said, he didn't leave me in a great spot financially, so I knew therapy was out, and I'm the unique girl, I'm the weird girl. And so I knew that group therapy probably wasn't going to work for me either. In the very beginning, I didn't know if I was going to stay on this planet because, like I said, I didn't know how to breathe. I didn't know where I went from that point. My entire world of 32 years crumbled. And so one day my daughter said to me, she said, "Mom, you realize your life is worth living too, right?" And that was when I had, I guess you could say, my light bulb moment, right? And so that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to stay on this planet. I have to figure out a way to heal myself. And I lost my husband. It's very hard. Emptiness that feels impossible to continue. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm from New Jersey. My son Dan passed from brain cancer. Renee has been my guide. Very grateful. Thank you for that, Joy. I appreciate it. My name is Maria from Georgia. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for sharing. Like I always say, my page is your page, and you're never interrupting me. So share away, and we'll just go. I believe the conversation goes where the conversation is supposed to go. So I appreciate that so much. Thank you, Joy. I appreciate that so very, very much. Oh, thank you for all the kind words. I lost my youngest son, my husband, and my oldest son. Oh my gracious. Well, I guess tonight is the night that you were all meant to be here, because tonight we're going to talk about grief and dealing with grief and all the different stages of grief. And so, like I said, feel free. You're never interrupting me. We are not shy around here, so you can always comment. In August, I lost my little boy to cancer. Oh my gracious. Wow. I guess tonight is definitely the night I was meant to talk about grief. You're grieving so much. Well, then you're in the right place, because that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I only have 2 rules on my page if you're new here. One is that I always ask that you just be kind, right? The second one is we talk absolutely no politics here. It's not against one side or the other. It's just not at all what my page is about. And there's a million other pages out there for that. Like I said, we talk about grief and loss and trauma. And if you're lonely and if you're struggling, that's what we talk about here. I always like to say I am on my journey of life where I am, and you are on your journey of life where you are. And none of us are ever going to completely agree on anything, or on everything, not anything. I can't talk tonight. And so we just agree to disagree here. So I just ask, if you can't do that, you just hop off and keep scrolling. Oh, thank you. You're going to make me cry, Joy. Okay, so let's get into this. And like I said, feel free to hop in anytime, and I'll try to keep up with the chat. So some of the things that I wanted to talk about first is letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Okay. I have a completely different perspective now on loss than I did when I first lost my husband. After learning that I have abilities to talk to my guides, and then learning that I'm a psychic medium and being able to talk to people from the other side. it totally changed my perspective on losing somebody. Obviously, in the very beginning, I didn't know all of this. And so how I dealt with grief and loss was different than how I look at it and deal with it now. Oh, thank you, Joy. So just know, letting go does not mean forgetting. Neither does being happy or moving on. Like I tell people all the time, I know in a lot of aspects, my children were upset that I moved on quickly. They felt I moved on too quickly. And, I tell everybody, just because I'm moving on doesn't mean that I forgot my husband. It doesn't mean that I'm not still grieving my husband. And it doesn't mean that I didn't love him, right? It just means that life continues and we have to move forward, right? And like I said, that doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean we didn't love them. And it doesn't mean that we can't be happy. Let's see. It just means that you're moving forward because that's what life is about. It's about moving forward. Thank you, Joy, for all the gifts. I appreciate you so much tonight. You're going to make me cry, girl, and I'm not going to get any of this out. I appreciate you so much. If you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. So, don't let holding on to grief becoming your identity, right? A lot of times people will, it just becomes your identity. And for me, I was really worried about that because I'm on here 4 nights a week and sometimes more, and I do videos and in a way it has become my identity that, my purpose was attached to the loss of my husband. But you have to still be able to find your own identity in that loss and not take that on as, what, does that make sense to everybody? Thank you. I guess for me, it's putting that into the terms of sitting in that loss or that grief and letting your whole identity leave you because you're stuck in that, right? Does that make sense to everybody? And so tonight we're going to talk about the different stages of it first. The denial, the guilt, anger, sadness, and feeling lost, right? So first we're going to talk about denial, pretending it isn't happening, distracting ourselves, or sweeping our feelings and emotions under the rug. And I talk about all the time on here about how important it is that you have to deal with it, right? And my husband was really great when he was still here about pretending that things didn't happen in life, and he just kind of swept them under the rug. And what I say all the time is, sadly, what happens eventually is that you sweep so many things under that rug that you trip over the rug. And so it's really important to not sweep your feelings and not, it's okay to be in a little bit of denial, right? Because that's part of it, right? And knowing and justifying that feeling like it isn't happening and maybe being in shock, that's okay, right? Because like I said, this is part of the stages of it. But moving on through the other stages and being able to move forward, you have to come to that and acknowledge that grief, right? That's the first step. Stacy, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. And you agree, Joy? And I don't want to slaughter your name. Is it Jethra? Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. And Bella, all the likes. And so coming to terms with that grief, acknowledging it, that is the first step to being able to heal and to be able to move forward. The second one is guilt. I had tremendous guilt. And I don't share this story very often. I have shared a few times. 2 days before my husband unalived himself, he had an episode and we didn't know what was happening. Looking back now, I know that I'm pretty sure that he had another stroke. But at the time it was very scary and I didn't know what was happening with him. he basically kind of shut down, would not acknowledge me, would not look at me in the eye. And by the time we got him to the ER and back into a room, my husband went into complete paralysis. He was paralyzed from the neck. His whole entire body went paralyzed. He had complete amnesia, did not know who he was, didn't know me, didn't know our children. And I have to say, was one of the scariest times for me. And the reason I say this is because that day on the way to the hospital, my husband had acknowledged that he did attempt to unalive himself, but in the state of, and then by the time I could have that conversation with him about when he did this, he had already went into this episode, and so I never really got to have that conversation. And so when we had arrived at the hospital, I had obviously told the hospital what was happening and that he had told me in the car this information. And so they had put my husband on a unalive watch. Sorry, I have to be careful what I say or they'll kick me off. If you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. And so they had put him on the watch. Well, they ran all the tests and everything came back normal. Like I said, knowing what I know now, looking back, I believe that he was having another stroke. And I basically was told later that because everything came back normal, because unless he was sitting in the MRI machine or having the EEG or whatever at the moment of the stroke, that they would have never picked that up. But the reason why I'm telling you this is it goes into guilt. So the next day after they ran all the tests, that evening he came out of the paralysis and he slowly gained his memory back. And when I had confronted him about what he had said to me, he said, I don't know where those thoughts came from. I seen my husband back in his eyes again. And so that next day after they ran all the tests and they said, they give us, I don't even remember what they called it now, basically extreme. He basically had an extreme panic attack is all they thought, and threw him and his body into this. And so they had asked me what my opinion was, and I said, I saw my husband back in his eyes, and, like I said, he didn't know where those thoughts came from, and it was not at all in my husband's demeanor or his personality to do something like that. And so I was the one that had told the hospital that, I feel he's okay. Like I said, I told them the same thing I just said, that, this is not in his character. This is just not anything that I would ever contemplate that my husband would do. And so they took him off the unalive watch and they sent us home. Had a very disturbing conversation. Wouldn't say disturbing, but when we got back, so we were living in our camper at the time so my husband could work in my mother's driveway. And that night he was, the look of horror that was in his eyes, he was just extremely stressed out. And I'm not going to go into any more detail, but the reason I'm telling you all of this is because I was the one that told the hospital that he was okay. I was the one that said, this isn't his character. I don't believe this would ever happen. And the next day it happened. And so I had a lot of guilt in the very beginning. Rightly so. I'm going to acknowledge that that's how I felt. Even though I know now that it wasn't anything that I could do or say that could change that outcome now. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. And so guilt, realizing that we don't control others, and are not responsible for others' actions, right? We're not responsible for their actions and their choices. And in some cases, showing our self-grace that we just can't control everything and letting ourselves off the hook that we did the best that we could, right? And like I said, I now can say that I was not responsible for his choice that day, no matter what I did or didn't do. We all make choices in this life, and we cannot control other people's choices. And even in the case of, maybe somebody who has passed from a health issue or something that wasn't like what happened with my husband, we do the best that we think that we can do at the time, right? We only can do what we think is right at the time. And so as far as guilt goes, show yourself some grace, right? Thank you for the badge. Is it Hope? I appreciate that. I think you were on the other night and I forgot if that wasn't your name. I apologize. So like I said, just know that that's part of the process. And there again, you have to acknowledge it in order to work through that. Guilt was something that I actually worked through pretty quickly. Like I said, once I was able to come to terms with, I am not responsible for somebody else's choices or actions, that I was able to work through that. Moving on to anger. Now, anger was the one that I struggled the most with, and I've been very upfront and honest about that. I actually wasn't able to work through a lot of the anger until actually just this summer. But knowing that it's okay to feel how you feel and to be angry about that loss and whatever form that it was for you, right? Even if it doesn't make sense to anybody else, right? I know a lot of people can sit and judge from the outside, and as the person going through that grief, it may look like they're being judgmental. One thing that I can say is just know that no matter what anybody else says, does, or think, that's none of our business, right? We cannot control other people's actions, behavior, or thoughts, right? And so just knowing that however it is that you feel, your feelings are justified, no matter what anybody else says, does, or think, okay? Thank you for the like spell. I appreciate that. And like I said, I was very angry with him. My husband, like I said, didn't leave me in a great spot financially. He actually left me quite a crap show, to be honest. And I had a lot of things that ended up working out themselves, like life often does, right? Sometimes life throws us things and things just kind of happen to work themselves out. And a lot of the things that he left me did, and a lot of the things that he left me didn't, right? And that was, like I said, the hardest part for me was because I had been with him since I was 16 years old. I had worked outside the home and I took care of the kids in the house and I did all of that, but I had never taken care of myself before. And there was a lot of struggles in life that came with that. And so I was very, very angry with him. And I'm going to kind of go through all of the different stages, and then we'll talk about how to kind of deal with them. And so, like I said, anger was one that I really, really struggled with. The next one is sadness. The sense of loss or overwhelming feeling of that loss, right? And that's hard. That's another very, very hard thing, is the sadness. One of the things I talk about all the time is it's okay to have a moment, and you can maybe have 10 moments, 15 moments through your day, but learning not to unpack and live in those moments, right? I know a lot of times people think that when we go through grief or loss that, we should just curl up in a ball in a bed and just stay there. And if we don't stay there and in that and eternal loss and sadness and anger and guilt and whatever, all of those feelings that we go through for like a year, then we're horrible people and how dare you, But here's the thing. is grief and loss. It's your timetable. It's nobody else's timetable, So, you do you, like I always say, you do you, boo. And, if just don't unpack and live there. That is the biggest thing, is one, and this is where my new perspective comes in, as far as two things. One, I am a psychic medium and I do talk to those who have crossed over. And so I know that 95% of the time, those people, and I am seeing your comments, Joy. I lost my dad in 2020 and I still struggle with anger. Okay, well, we're going to talk about that because, like I said, that was a huge one for me. So stick with us because we're going to talk about kind of how to work through and deal with some of that. But 95% of the time, when the people that have crossed over come back to me, they come to me and say, tell my loved one that I'm okay. They want to reassure their loved ones here on the other side on our side of the veil, that they are okay, that they are safe, that they are in a good place. And here's the thing is, they don't want us to be sad. They don't want us. And now keep in mind when I say this, so sadness is for us. It's not for them, right? Because like I said, they're in a great place. They're happy and they're fine. Sadness is for us. There again, like I said, that doesn't mean your feelings are invalid at all. That's not at all what I'm saying. But just know that they're okay and they want you to be okay, because they're okay. So I'm just going to skip through the next one really quickly here, because then I want to get into tonight is really just dealing with this, feeling lost. This was another huge one for me, because my entire world of 32 years crumbled by his choice that day. There was nothing left of my world, and everything that was left of it was basically taken from me. Not only did I have to work through that loss and that grief and all of these things that come with it, but I also then had to figure out, okay, now where do I go from here? Because that old life was gone. And I had to figure out who I was, because like I said, I had never went through an adult life without him. And so I didn't know who I was, without him. And so a lot of times that is a huge part of grief and loss, is figuring out, okay, where do I belong now, right? And feeling that lost feeling, whether, like Joy, who lost her son, that's a huge part of us as a parent, is being that mom to our children, right? Or the wife, or, whatever it may be, is there's a void there now, right? And figuring out, okay, now how do we fill that void? And we're not filling it to distract us, but being able to heal and move forward is what I mean when I say fill that void, right? That doesn't mean forget them. Doesn't mean we didn't love them. It doesn't mean any of that, right? So working through all of this, and the biggest thing is being able to I can't talk tonight. I know what I want to say. It's just my mouth won't tell me. Being able to walk through that grief and face it. And that is what starts the healing process, right? Is being able to walk through that. And like I said, it starts with acknowledging all of those stages that we just talked about, and then going, okay. And when you're ready, keyword, you're ready, your timeline, you do you, boo. Teach where he went to school. Exactly. Yes. So there's that void is there. But when you're ready, learning how to walk through that in order to heal, right? That's the next step, is the healing part of it. You walk, and you may still continue to to go through some of those stages, even when you're in the healing process. I believe I was in the healing process, but like I said, I was still struggling with that anger. And so we'll talk about that real quick. Well, maybe not real quick, but Spooky Curves, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. If you're just hopping on, tell us who you are, where you're from. But like for me, like I said, I really, really struggled with the anger. When the life situation would come up that I kind of felt like I wouldn't be in that situation. Thank you for the badge. I appreciate that. Then I would get angry with him. There was one morning that I woke up and my dog had strung out garbage all over my kitchen, and I walked to the kitchen and it just sent me into a total meltdown, right? And it really had nothing to do with the dog that just strung out. I wasn't really upset with the dog for stringing out all of the garbage. It was what was going on in my life at the time. That just was the catalyst that brought it to the forefront and was like for me to have the meltdown that morning, right? And I'm standing in the bathroom trying to get ready for work. And because I am a medium, I could hear Daryl talking to me like he often has, when I'm struggling. And in that moment of anger, I literally told him, stop it. Just stop it. Stop talking to me. Stop coming to me. I'm angry with you. And I don't want to do this anymore. Right? And in that moment of anger, I told him, stop talking to me. Don't come to me anymore. Right? And so, there's different things in life that will be a trigger, and just learning those triggers and learning how to work through those also is part of that. And so skip forward to this summer. It had been about a little over a year and a half since he had passed. And I was still acknowledging that I had anger. I knew that I had anger because I had just had that meltdown maybe a month before that. Oh, thank you, Joy. I appreciate that. Thank you, Bella. And so I had acknowledged that, like I said, I had been acknowledging the whole year and a half that I was still struggling with the anger. And I have a gentleman that talks to his spirit guides and is very, I would call, spiritually enlightened. And he has helped me through my process of learning my abilities. And so he's kind of my mentor. And one morning at work, he messaged me. He said, hey, are you busy? And I'm like, well, I'm at work, but we can talk. What's up? And he said to me, he goes, I got a message for you, because I still get messages too. And he said, your next door that you're waiting for isn't going to come. And I said, it's not. And he said, no, not right now, because you aren't healed enough with your anger towards him for that new door to open. And I knew it. Like I said, I knew it, and I had been acknowledging it. And I had done what I thought I needed to do, right? I had went out into nature. So if you're not familiar, I went to nature and I would journal and I would cry and I would journal and I would cry. And I had, at one point early on, probably within 2 months of him passing, if you're not familiar with the story, I live in an apartment, so I have to kind of be quiet, but my daughter was out in the other room, and my guide said, you know what you have to do. And I was like, somehow I just knew. I knew what they were talking about. And so I went out and I told my daughter, I said, you're going to hear some things come out of the bedroom, and I just want you to know that I'm okay, but I have to do this. And I went back into the bedroom and I cried and I screamed at him and I said, you had to have known the situation that you were going to put me in. And I apologize. It still makes me emotional knowing what signs are from Daniel. Well, we will talk about that, Bella, okay? Give me a second. We'll discuss that. And so, and I just let him have it. And I said, you had to have known the position that you were going to leave me in, and that how hard this was going to be for me. And, and so going through all of that and then having this different conversations with him, and like that meltdown that morning. And I, like I said, I've many times I went to nature and I journaled about how angry that I was with him. And, and I thought that I was working through it, and I was, but I didn't realize I wasn't quite there yet. And so after I had this conversation with this guy that mentors me, it was kind of crazy. So about 2 days later, I get in the truck to go to work. This was my husband's truck. And oftentimes I knew he was with me because I could smell him. I know it sounds crazy, but I could smell him. And so I get in the truck that morning to go to work, and I was like, oh, you're going to ride to work with me today. Okay. And so, of course, I just kind of talked to him. I acknowledged that he's there. And I went to work that day, and I got in the truck to leave to go home to go to work. And I had about 15-20 minute drive home from work. And like I said, I live in an apartment, and I thought, okay, obviously today is the day that we're going to have another discussion. You smell him? Yep. And that's one of the signs. So don't question that. And so I get in the truck and I just start talking to him like I normally would. And then I decided, you know what? Nobody can hear me. I'm in the truck. I'm driving. Nobody can hear me. And I just screamed. And everything that I had said before, I had said it again. And I said, do you realize how hard the last 2 years has been for me? And I just poured my heart out. And I screamed and I screamed and I cried and I screamed and I cried. And let me tell you, when I pulled into my apartment building, after that conversation, it was like 100-pound weight had been lifted off my shoulders that day. And for the first time in almost 2 years, I felt like I had finally got out the anger, that I finally dealt with it. Now, keep in mind, I'm still human, right? We're all human, and I still have little bits here and there, but for the most part, I just know now, and I've put it into perspective, that he did what he felt he had to do, and what happened, and I have to move forward from that, right? And it happened for me and not to me. That was one of the hugest things that I've learned in the last 2 years, is putting everything that happened into perspective, shifting my perspective that nothing in this life happens to us, it happens for us. Sadly as that may sound, and some people may not be there yet, and I understand that and I get that. Okay, so enough of my rambling on. Let's talk about, so what are some ways that we can deal with it? For me, the biggest, one of the biggest thing was journaling, right? And I tell people, if you're angry, go to the thrift store, buy some plates or something that's breakable, go somewhere and just throw it, break it, scream, holler, go into nature, ground yourself, put your feet in the grass, the dirt, the sand, water, whatever it may be. But these are some of the best ways to deal with the anger part of it, but know that you have to feel it to heal it. So if you're at that point where you're ready to heal, you have to feel it to heal it. You got to walk through that storm. All of the emotions, all of the stages, you have to feel it to heal it. Another big one for me is I would get all muddled in my head. And, with I don't want to say stress, it would be the anxiety of everything that I was taking on and now taking on it alone. And so for me, when I get all muddled, I discovered going to the gym and just walking on the treadmill and just like walking it out. And I don't know, maybe it's something to do with, it's above my pay grade, but maybe it's endorphins. I don't know what it is, but going to the gym really, really helped me be able to clear my head. And when I wouldn't be able to think straight from the entire situation, exercise and going to the gym was beneficial and still very, very beneficial for me. There are times that I still get in my head, and going to the gym is my thing. Maybe taking a hike for you, going on a drive, whatever it may be. Find something that helps you work through what I call the muddle in your head. Because a lot of times when we're grieving, we start having those thoughts of coulda, woulda, shoulda, if I had only done this, or if I should have done that, or why did I say this, or why did I do this? That's what I call the muddle in your head. Find something that helps you work through that muddle. Okay? Meditation was huge for me. And I know, and like I said, we're going to agree to disagree on here, and I'm not here to push my view on anyone. I know a lot of religions or how people believe they don't believe in meditation. I swear by meditation. But meditation isn't just sitting maybe in a quiet room. For me in the beginning it was. That's how I dealt with it. I meditated 3-4 times a day in the very beginning. Because that was how I was able to work through what I was dealing with at the time. But meditation can just be taking a hike and just clearing those thoughts. Exactly what I was just talking about. Clearing that muddle out of your head and finding a way to do that. And so for me, it was meditation, going to the gym. But meditation, just standing at maybe doing dishes at the sink. But learning how to quiet your mind, that to me is meditation. Not just sitting here, in a quiet, dark room. Meditation can be many things. Taking a drive, taking a hike by yourself, whatever that is to you. It's just learning to quiet your mind and through all of the everything that's going on through your head. Talking about it. A lot of people know and some don't. Before my husband passed, the 2 years leading up to that, a hot shower. Yes, for me, a hot bath. I'm a bath girl, but yes, a hot shower for some people. Leading up to it, my husband had gotten sick at the end of 21 with pneumonia and was doing well actually, but then had 2 strokes while he was in the hospital and was in the hospital for 88 days. And so, I forgot where I was going with that. I totally lost my train of thought. It'll come to me. Talking about it. And so in that process of my husband being sick, it was just easier for me to get on and do a Facebook Live because I had friends and family all over the country that was always like, hey, what's going on? And so 3 times a day for like 80 days, I would get online and I would tell people what it was happening with my husband and myself. And in a way, that was how I dealt with it. I guess you could say that was, people was my therapy while he was in the hospital and learning how to deal with that. And also being able to inform people. And so, and I know a lot of people thought that I was wrong, but the day that my husband passed, I did a Facebook Live because there was so many people that went on that journey with us and went on the journey of after he got out of the hospital and the 6 months of physical therapy that he went through in order to get his life back. And so there was just, everybody had been on this journey with us. And so I got on a Facebook Live and I just started talking about it and what had happened. And no, nobody should judge. And here's the thing, I know what people think probably, but I don't really care because I know that what they think of me or their judgments of me has nothing to do with me, right? That's none of my business. Well, I'm just saying that I'm sure people thought that I was crazy. But I just felt that was still part of our journey, right? That's how his journey ended. And everybody had taken that journey with us. And I don't know, in a way, I felt like that was an obligation to just let people know that his journey had ended. And so then in the weeks after that, we couldn't have the funeral for about 2 weeks because we had to wait to get his person back. I don't know what I can say on here. And so in that 2 weeks, every day I would just get on a Facebook Live and I would talk about it, because everybody, like I said, they had already known my journey. And for me, that was my therapy. Those were my friends. Those were my family. And it was comforting to be able to just get on and talk about it. And maybe you're not a Facebook Live kind of person, and maybe you don't want anybody to know your business, and that's fine. I'm not saying you have to do that. I'm just saying talk about it. The more you talk about it, the more healing that it is, right? And it's okay to talk about them, the people that you've lost. That's part of the grieving process. And if somebody doesn't want to hear about it, then talk to somebody else about it. It's okay, right? Hold on, Joy. You're glad that I reach out the latest. Absolutely, to survive. Yes. And what's best for you. Exactly. And that's the thing. Do what's best for you. You know, if maybe you want to start a blog and let other people know that they're not alone. And that's how you are dealing with your grief. It's okay. However you deal with it is okay. So talk about it. And then, like I said, last but not least, learning to have a moment, or 10 moments, or 15 moments. You know, I had a brief moment today. I was going through my notes because I keep track of all of my lives and all of my videos, and I was going through my notes today. And I also put my readings in my notes. And so there was a time where Daryl came to me, and I had wrote down everything that he had said, and I was reading that today, and I had a moment, right? And, you know, it's okay to have a moment, or 10, but don't unpack and live there. Maybe you have, you know, a 5-minute moment right now and a 10-minute moment later. It's okay. Just don't unpack and live there. Okay? If you take nothing else out of this, is that your feelings are valid. It doesn't matter what anybody else says or does. You grieve and heal on your time frame. And that you're never alone. That's, I guess, the other biggest message is that's what this community is for, is that you're never alone. And as long as I'm here for you. So I appreciate you guys so much. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anybody or anything in the chat. Does anybody have anything else they want to add or say to that? Well, I'm waiting to see if any comments are coming in. Hopefully they're not filtering comments tonight, because I don't have any moderators on. And usually sometimes they can see the comments that I can't. If I missed a comment and it's important, do message me after. Because I do not want to miss anybody's comments. I have no control over it. I have all my filters off. TikTok is just TikTok. But like I said, well, I'm waiting to see. If you're not familiar, I also have a YouTube channel. So all of the videos that you see here are uploaded over there. The only difference is that you will find my lives. So if you enjoy my content, thank you, Joy. If you enjoy my content and you enjoy my lives, and maybe you missed one and you want to catch up, I do upload those lives usually the next day over to my YouTube channel, Scorpio Medium. So if you're not a subscriber, I would love it if you went over there and subscribed. Like I said, it's called Scorpio Medium. I am changing my hours, or my time of when I'm on lives, back to where I was. So I will be here Sunday through Wednesday. As of right now, I'm working on a new job this week, so we'll see what my hours are. They might get changed again, but as of right now, I'm going back to Sunday through Wednesday, so I can hopefully give them availability Thursday through Sunday, or through Saturday, at night. So I am here Sunday through Wednesday. I try to be as consistent as possible. Obviously, I have a life, and obviously things come up for me too. But I do try to be consistent. I'm here at 6:30 Pacific time, 7:30 Mountain time, 8:30 Central, and 9:30 Eastern time. So I'm here Sunday through Wednesday, 6:30 Pacific time. If you're interested in a reading, if you didn't catch that. I am a psychic medium, so if you are interested in a full reading, those are normally $40 for an hour. You can send me an email, which is down in my bio. That's how you would set one of those up. And I have a Venmo down there. If you would like to leave me a tip, if you enjoy my content and you want to leave me a tip, you can do that through my Venmo. Always appreciated, but never expected. And that's pretty much everything I have. Does anybody have anything else they want to say? I know a lot of you guys, I struggle knowing what signs. Okay, yeah, I'm glad that you brought that back up, Bella. So here's the thing. If you think it's a sign from him, if that's what your gut, if that's what your intuition tells you, that's a sign. Like today, I saw a butterfly. I believe that was a sign when I was at the park doing my reels this morning. If you believe it's a sign, your gut tells you it's a sign, it's a sign. Okay? Always listen to your intuition, your gut. God gave you that intuition for a reason. And the problem is we don't listen. And even me as a psychic medium, there are times where, I'll get messages and I question, right? And I'm learning not to do that. Because like I said, we are not taught to listen to our gut, our instinct, which is our little meter that God give us that we're supposed to listen to. And we just aren't taught to do that. So if you believe it's a sign from him, Daryl leaves me coins all the time. Not so much lately. I had one a little bit ago, but not as much as I was getting them, but in just random places, there's a coin. I believe that's a sign from Daryl. So if you believe it's a sign, it is a sign. Like I tell people all the time, if you think you're not getting signs and you want a sign, tell them you want a sign. Say, if you're with me, send me a green car or you see their birthday, maybe on the clock all the time, whatever it may be. Just know that a lot of people are like, I never get signs from my loved ones. And I'm like, well, if you're expecting a billboard, you're probably not going to get one. I mean, granted, there's probably times where something on a billboard might, scream out at you, and that is a sign. But if you're expecting a billboard, you're not going to get a billboard. They're little things like numbers or butterflies or coins, birds. A lot of times people say, I see a cardinal and I believe it's my mother. If you believe it's your mother, then it's probably your mother. So yeah, Brandy, thank you for the badge. I appreciate that. So just go with your gut, Bella, and knowing that it sounds like you have your own abilities, which we all do, just not everybody's tapped into them. It probably is a sign. Okay. So just trust that. Anybody else have anything else they want to talk about? I know we had some people, I don't know if we lost them, that had some major loss going on, if they want to talk about that. Anybody have any questions? Anybody? Okay, guys. Well, oh, Richard, thank you for the badge, and thank you for the likes too. I appreciate that. Aw, thank you. Okay, guys. Well, if there's nothing else, always know, like I said, that you're not alone. Today's Sunday, so I will be back here tomorrow night. I'm not sure what I'm discussing yet. Lost my youngest son in July. Oh, I'm sorry, Brandy. Did you want to talk about it? How are you dealing with it? Are you dealing with it? Oh, thank you, Richard. Are you dealing with it okay? Are you not dealing with it? Staying busy. Okay. As long as staying busy is not sweeping your feelings and your emotions under the rug. Okay? Right? Because you will trip over that rug. It will come back. I tell people all the time, most people don't know that in 1994, I had a full-term stillborn. And I had a 3-year-old to take care of. And when I got home, I didn't think I had time to grieve. And so about 2 years later, it came back and it hit me like a brick wall. So just make sure that you're dealing with those feelings and those emotions. You have moments. Okay, that's great. As long as you're not unpacking and living there, that's awesome. And just know that I'm here for you. And if you need me, message me anytime. And I'm here, like I said, Sunday through Wednesday. And we can talk about it anytime. That's what my community is for. So I'm glad that you were able to hop on tonight, and I'm so sorry for your loss. You're so very welcome. And thank you for that badge. I appreciate that. So, like I said, it's okay. Just don't be stuffing those feelings, right? When they come, and it doesn't matter. Like for me, I don't care if I cry in the grocery store, right? You know, in the very beginning, at times I would break down and it didn't matter where I was at. And maybe you want to wait till you get out to your car and you deal with your feelings. Just make sure you're dealing with them, okay? And we'll talk about that more, Bella. And, you know, like I said, just learning how to calm your mind and then telling him to come. And tell him to come in your dreams, too. A lot of times that's the easiest way for them to come. For anybody who's grieving or that has lost somebody. You try? Okay. Like I said, tell them to come visit you in your dreams. I could not wait till I went to sleep before I knew I had these abilities to hear Daryl. Could not wait to go to sleep because I knew that that was a way for me to connect with him. So from him telling you, okay, that's good to know. Yep. All right. Does anybody else have anything else? Any other comments or anything you just need to vent about or get off your chest tonight? Anybody? All right. Going once? Going twice? Anybody? All right. Well, just know that I love you all. I appreciate you all. I appreciate all of the gifts and all the love that you share with me. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have a page or a community. So I love you all. I appreciate you all. I hope you all have a great night. Remember to make tomorrow great because it is a choice. I will be back here tomorrow at 6:30. And until we meet again.